Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to our session. So my name is Nikki Kimball. I'm one of the educational consultants at Just2easy. I do the vast majority of the online training, so I'm probably familiar to a few of you. And in today's session, we're going to be looking at using Just2easy to support students with SEND, so special educational needs and disabilities. Bit of housekeeping as always. It is a 60-minute session, so I'm aiming to finish by 4:30. I've got Sophie in the background. Sophie is our general manager. What question Sophie can't ask isn't worth asking, to be honest. So questions can be asked via the chat, and I will be giving a Q&A session at the end of the training as well. So you can pop any questions that you have in the chat, and I will try and go through those, any that Sophie hasn't answered. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube, as is all of our online training. Now, it's a jam-packed session. So a bit of my background, I worked in an SEND school for the best part of a decade, and the majority of my students had ADHD, dyslexia, and were on the autistic spectrum. So I have tried to plan this session for both primary schools and for special schools as well. So I've kind of tried to merge the two. But what we're going to look at is QR codes, so getting your students logged in with QR codes for easy access, streamlining your Launchpad and adding custom tiles to your Launchpad, capturing evidence with camera, video and sound tools. So these are new tools that we've introduced this year. So I'm going to show you how to use those. And then I've also given you some activity suggestions. So we're going to look at JIT right quickly. We're really going to focus on J2E5, so adding sounds to pictures, so interactive timetables, social stories, using text to speech, speech to text and word lists, and creating jigsaws. And then hopefully, if I've got enough time, we're going to showcase J2 PDF, so making your existing worksheets interactive. And then a little bit about the resource library and what resources we've got available. So, jam-packed session as always. Now, first of all, how you can access Just2easy. So I know we've got a lot of you from Northern Ireland, maybe a few from Wales, London, and also our Scottish schools. So Just2easy can be accessed via any device, anywhere, as long as you've got an internet connection. Now, it really depends on whether you're in a managed service or not. So if you are a managed service, and by that I mean LGFL schools, C2K schools, hub schools, GLOW schools, you can use the appropriate button here. So this is j2e.com. And obviously, if you're a London school, you would click on the LGFL logo and use your LGFL login. C2K schools, you can use the EA button. Our Welsh hub schools use the hub button. And GLOW schools will use the RM Unify button, and then you just use your usual credentials to log in. And any of you that are joining us from a manual school, you would be given a school name and a username and a password, and you can use that here. So that is how you would log into the site. And then how we can get our students logged in. Now, this was the bane of my life when I worked in school, was just trying to get students onto appropriate websites that we've subscribed to and having all the different usernames and passwords. So we actually have QR code login cards that your students can use. These are scannable, they're personal for each student, and they're printable. Okay, so you print them out, keep them in a safe place. The children can open up the camera on their device. So if you're using an iPad, just open the camera app. If you're using a Chromebook, again, just use the camera app. Hold the QR code up to the camera and it will log them straight in. So no need for usernames, no need for passwords, and can make your lessons a lot more seamless, hopefully. So our QR codes can be found in the dashboard. Okay, so the dashboard from my Launchpad, the dashboard is here. So this is a teacher only tool. So I'm going to open up my dashboard. Now you can either do this through manage users. So if you're just doing this for maybe 1 or 2 pupils, okay, you can highlight these pupils in manage users and click on that QR code button there. I'm just going to zoom in just so you can see QR code button. So that's great. Maybe if you've got just a few students in your class that you know really struggle to log in for whatever reason, you can just create QR codes just for those students instead of printing out the whole class. Now, the other way of doing it is we can go to the Classes tab. So this is where you can generate for a whole class. So from the Classes tab, we click on the QR code button. Then you select a class. So I'm going to select my class 1. Then you're given 3 different options. I would generally recommend these login codes if they really struggle with logging in, because these are the printable ones. You can create a class code, but that generates a code on your screen. It's not printable. The kids have to hold it up to the screen. So that just requires a little bit more classroom management. So I'm going to click this generate user login codes. And there we go. We've got our login codes. You can print these at the top, cut them up, laminate them if you really wish, put them on a lanyard if you want. And the students can scan this and it will log them straight in. As I said, no need for a username, no need for a password. So really quick and simple way of getting your students logged in. Now, I know that was a very quick tutorial. There is a 2-minute video on how to do that on our YouTube channel, which is Just2easy TV. Okay, so that will help you if you need a reference point. So once we're logged in, we can also personalize the Launchpad for our students. So sometimes if I look at my Launchpad, this can be a little bit overwhelming for certain students. You know, there's so many tiles. Some of them may be inappropriate for their level. You might want just to reduce the amount of access they have to certain tools. And we can do that. We can streamline by class what they see on the Launchpad. And that's done through the dashboard. So if I go to dashboard again, and this time I'm going to go up to the J2 Launch button here. And there we go. These are all of our tools that we have. So each one of these is a tile on the Launchpad. So for example, J2 Blogging. This is quite a high level tool. It's all around website creation. It's not necessarily appropriate for all of our students. So what I can do is I can click on J2 Blogging. I know I want to remove that. And all I have to do is just deselect that class that it's relevant to. So class 1, I can remove that. So that will remove that for the whole class. Now you're probably thinking, well, there might be certain students that can access it and certain students that can't. You can also set up teaching classes. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do that today, but teaching classes are smaller groups of students. It's done through the Classes tab. There is a video on YouTube on how to do that. So instead of switching off class 1, for example, I could just switch off, I don't know, my digital leaders or my EYFS or my SEND group or whatever it is you want to call that teaching class. So just to give you a view, I should have done this before my session started. Let me just log in as my demo pupil. There we go. So she's got J2 Bloggy here. If I go back to my teacher account, if I untick that, if I go back to my student account, if I refresh her page, you can see that Bloggy's gone completely. So I can go through all of these tiles here and switch off the ones that I don't want them to access and make sure the ones that I do want them to access are ticked. Okay, so that is how we can streamline that Launchpad. It could be that your students might just access JIT and J2 stars, in which case, you know, you can switch all of those off. Okay, so that is how we can streamline or personalize our Launchpad for certain students. Now, adding custom tiles for our students. Okay, we can create our own tiles. So it might be that you use other websites and you want your students to access those websites, but you don't want them to have to write in a URL into the address bar because, let's face it, that's a very painful process for everyone involved. So what we can do, and I've got one here already, I've got this tile and I want to link to this video about planning a story. Okay, so I want them to access this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this address, this URL at the top. So I'm going to right click and copy. And then I'm going to go back to my Launchpad. And then I've got this plus button here at the top of my screen. So that will bring up the option to create a folder or a tile. So you can create a folder of links if you wanted to. Maybe these are literacy links, history links, or just links in general. Or you can just create the one tile. And I'm going to title that however you want it, story plan. And then you're going to paste this URL in this box here. So I'm going to right click and paste. Depending on which website you're using, it will pull a thumbnail. So for YouTube, you will get a YouTube logo. I think Wikipedia, you get a Wikipedia logo. And then you can also add in info, add in tags if you want to, so maybe literacy. And we can change the color of that particular tile. So, you know, maybe that you want history tiles to be one color and maths tiles to be another, just to give that visual prompt about what that tile might be about. And you can see we've got this tile preview here, and then I click plus, and that has added that onto my Launchpad. Now, as with everything in Just2easy, if you want your students to access that, you have to share it. Okay, so these have just added onto my Launchpad. So to share it, we're going to go to this little grey man here, these two grey people. We're going to click on that. This is going to bring up your share dialog box. So we can use the drop down menu here, and you could share with your whole class if you wanted to. As I said earlier, you could set up a teaching class. You could just have an SEND teaching class. Okay, so you could set that for them. Or you can set for individual users. So for example, I'm just going to set that for Lottie. I know that's just appropriate for Lottie. And there we go. She will have that now as a tile on her Launchpad. Now, if I wanted to remove that from her Launchpad, all I need to do is to hover over. You can see the grey people have turned into green people. So I know that it's a shared tile. I can click on those green people, and I can just press that cross, and that will remove that tile from the student's Launchpad, not from your Launchpad. Okay. If you did want to delete that tile completely, you just press that I button and press the bin, and that will remove it from both your Launchpad and whoever you've shared it with. So to show you on Lottie's Launchpad, if I refresh her page now, there we go. There is that tile. She can click on that and it takes her directly to the place I want her to be looking at as a reference point. So no faffing around with go to BBC Bite Size, then click on this button, then open this page, and because generally you've lost half of them in that process. And great for your homework. Okay. So I'm going to close some of these tabs down. So that is adding a tile onto the Launchpad. As I said, there is a YouTube video on how to do that step by step. So don't worry if I've gone a little bit quickly with that. Now, capturing evidence. We have these three brand new tools. I think we released them in September or October time. And some people are still not aware that they are there. And they all work in exactly the same way. So I'm not going to show you video and camera. I'm just going to focus on sound, but just be reassured that they all work in exactly the same way. Just with video and camera, you would take a photo or a video instead of recording a sound, obviously. And they can be found off your Launchpad. So we've got video, sound, camera. Okay, so I'm going to click in my sound. And as I said, with the video and camera, you would have the camera buttons up here. And I'm just going to record a little bit of speech. It'll count down. Good morning, class. And there we go. Now, by default, it will save to your file. Okay, but you can click on this button here and you can choose who you'd like to have that in their file. So maybe you are recording this on your laptop as a teacher. Maybe they're reading out loud, for example, and you want to add that into Lottie's file. Where's Lottie? I think she's towards the bottom. There we go. There's Lottie. And then I can click OK. You can refine that according to class. So if you know a specific class that student's in, you do need to highlight all of the students that you want to receive that particular photo, video, or sound. and then we click OK. So that's going to save to my file and to Lottie's. Now, if I want to remove me, I just press that X, and that's just saving to Lottie's file now. I've also got the option to rename that file. So maybe that is, let's say, Lottie reading aloud. I can play that back, listen to it. Good morning, class. And then when I'm happy with that, I can click save, and that is going to save into Lottie's file. So that's gone, and then it's going to ask you if you want to start a new recording, and I'm going to click cancel for that because I don't want to start a new recording. So again, just to flick back to Lottie's account, you're going to be bored of this. If I go into her My Files, there's that sound. Okay, so it does save as evidence into her file. If that was a photo, it would be a photo. If it was a video, it would be a video. Okay, and you can tag that against multiple children. So for example, maybe you've taken a photo of them working on a team project. As long as you've tagged them in that saving process, that will then save into all of their My Files as evidence, and you can play that. Good morning, class. And there we go. Okay. So that is how we can capture evidence using sound, video, and camera, and you can save that to multiple users as well. Right, let's get into some actual activities that you can use with the kids. So we're going to start with JitWrite, start very simply. And the reason I chose JitWrite is because we've got speech to text, text to speech, and word lists that are all built in. So all of these accessibility settings are already there, and students can use them if they want to, and if they don't need them, they don't need to use them. So we're going to open up JIT, which is our infant toolkit. It's this lovely yellow tile. Now, if you haven't seen JIT, it's brilliant. It's 8 tools within the same toolkit. They are all geared towards probably year 4 and below, which is Scotland and Ireland P5 and below. And the beauty of them is they are just very simple and easy to use. There's no faffing around. And it always opens up in Write. You've got the other tools up here. So we've got things like pictograms and charts and Turtle and Mix, which is our ebook creator. We're going to stay with Write, and I'm going. Sorry, love,
to interrupt. I think that the chat some people are having chat with issues with the chat.
Oh, do you want me to check it? Is everybody fine? Is everybody having problems with the chat? Well, I suppose you can't chat and tell me if you are. Let me see if that helps. Oh, Belinda's having issues. Yeah, if you could put your hand up if you're having issues with the chat. Okay. There's not really much I can do live, I'm afraid. But what I will say, I'm just going to go back to JIT so I'm not looking at myself. What I will say is I will give an email address. So if there are questions that you want answering and you're having problems with the chat, just send me an email with your questions and I can knock up some videos and send you across answers to the questions. So hopefully that will rectify it. I'm not quite sure why we've got an issue with the chat. So sorry about that. Okay, so with JitWrite, you're going to choose a background. Now you don't have to choose a background. The children can just have a blank canvas and start their writing. There are various clip art backgrounds to choose from. There are some seasonal ones as well. So we've got Halloween, we've got Christmas, Nativity, and the Coronation, which you may well have another one soon. So we're going to keep it there. If you're thinking, you know what, this is just a little bit childish, I've got an older student with SEND that would benefit from JitWrite, but these are really childish. You can also use pictures as backgrounds. So if I click pictures, I've got my Files. So anything that I've added into my Files, I can add in. You can take photographs. I'm not going to click that, otherwise you'll just see all my very messy spare room. So you can click that and take photographs straight in. So maybe you're doing an all about me They can have their face as a background and write their information on top. You can load from external sources, so you can click this button and that will open up your hard drive. And you've also got this button here, which is a Google image search. So we could look for spring, for example. Maybe they're doing some spring-inspired writing, maybe a haiku or a poem, or I don't know, just creating some writing. So you can add some photographs as backgrounds as well. So that's a nice way of making it more age appropriate for older students while still retaining the simplicity of JIT Write. Okay, so that is that little globe button within the Pictures tab. But I'm going to go with Beach, just because it's easy. And that's going to open up Beach. Now, depending on the template, the text may start halfway down, just depending, or it might start at the top. The word bank's closed by default, so it's assuming the students don't need it. But that's really easy to open. You just click on the word Beach, and there we go. We've got a linked word list ready to go. So first of all, I'm going to write my title. So I'm going to click on my page and I'm going to say, going to the, maybe they don't know how to spell beach. So in their word list, they can look for the word. There we go, it's at the top. And they can hover over and click on that speech bubble, beach, and listen to the word. Now, if you are accessing this on a touchscreen device, such as an iPad, what you will need to do is click on that word, click once on the word to listen to it and twice to add it into the document. Okay, so it works slightly differently than a trackpad. But if you want to add it, I'm using my mouse, I'm just going to click on the word beach and that's going to add that in. Okay, so go into the beach. The children can change things like the font size, the font. So there's only 6 fonts to choose from, so you're not going to lose them into the font abyss where they're going through 1,000 fonts and they want to find the perfect one. They've only got 6 to choose from. And they can also change their text colour. Let's go with blue. There we go. Lovely. When they've started their writing, they've also got text to speech in the top right. So this will repeat either everything on the page, or if you just want to listen to a little portion, you can highlight it. So I'm going to use this to start with. So if I click on the text
going to the beach,
and it reads it back to me. Okay. I'm going to say we went to the beach and we saw I'm going to click crab and ice cream and an ice cream, of course. I'm going to highlight just that second part of that document because I just want to listen to that.
We went to the beach and we saw a crab and an ice cream.
So there we go. So that's the beginning of our text. I can highlight that text as well and make it smaller. So let's go and have that as the body of our text. Maybe your students really struggle with written language. Could be an EAL student, could be a student with dyslexia, ASD, ADHD, in which case they can dictate their work instead using speech to text. Now the speech to text is up here on the left, so we can click this. Now it may well, if this is the first time you're using it, when we click the microphone, it may come up with a permission dialog box, just asking you to allow permission for the microphone. So you have to click allow. Now if it comes up with an error code, it means that someone's clicked decline. So you will need to go into either your browser settings and just allow it, or into your iPad settings and click the privacy settings on for your microphone. Okay. And then when you're ready to dictate, you have to do this a sentence at a time. And we're going to click here. It was a very hot day and we had a lovely ice cream. It's a miracle that it's understood my Wolverhampton accent. Sometimes it doesn't, it really struggles. And then when you're happy with it, you can click add text. Now, just to highlight, there are also other languages they can dictate in. So if you are dealing with high EAL, or maybe there's a student with no English whatsoever, they can dictate in their native tongue. So we've got all sorts. We've got Irish, we've got Italian, we've got Romanian, we've got all the usual suspects. Unfortunately, we don't have Welsh. And the reason for that is because Google doesn't have it. We pull this from Google. So I'm sorry for those Welsh speakers out there, but we are, as soon as it's available, we will add it, but we're sort of restricted. And then we click add text, and that has added that onto my document. So there we go. And then the very last thing that we can do is you can record audio. So maybe the children have written this and you want to record that as evidence. So we can hit the record button at the top and they can dictate. I'm not going to dictate all of it, but I'm just going to dictate the title. Going to the Beach by Miss Kimball. And there we go. You can listen to that back. Going to the Beach by Miss Kimball. And click OK, and that will link that to that file. So let's rename that file. It would help if I could type. And then when they're done, they click save. And that is going to save a copy into their My Files. So you as a teacher, you can access that through the pupil files area. Okay. And it will grey out as well. I had many lessons where my students would keep clicking the save file because it would allow them to keep clicking the save file, and I would end up with 30 copies of the same file in their folder. And you have to check every one of them just to check whether there's any difference. So it does only allow you to save one copy unless they make further changes, in which case this can save and it will save a new version over. It will overwrite. Okay, so that is JIT. Right, so that's a very good beginnings of word processing activity. Great for your, reception year 1, 2, 3, and students that maybe struggle a little bit and need a simplified version of a word processor. Right, so as I said, I have tried to make this as inclusive as possible. I am aware that we have got some special needs schools on the call. So this is one of the big things that I used to do in the mornings. My students would come in, try and be as inclusive as possible. I had a lot of non-verbal children. So we used to have an interactive register. And this is something that's really easy to make in J2E5. So this portion of the session is going to be around J2E5, kind of variations of the same thing, adding a picture and adding some sound to that picture. So we've got a timetable and an interactive register. So if I just open this up just to show you, all I've done, these are AI images, but obviously you would take photographs of your children. I've added these pictures onto a J2E5 file. I've linked some sound to it. And then when they click on their picture, good morning, everyone, it says good morning, everyone. So if they are non-verbal, obviously you would say that for them. If they're partially verbal, you could record them saying it, or you could record them saying whatever. And that is a widget symbol that I actually borrowed off the internet. So some of you special needs schools will probably have access to a board maker or widget or Pix4Pex or whatever symbol system it is that you're using. You can import pictures into J2E5. That's very easy to do. You just right click and paste it onto a J2E5 file and it will import it. That's all you've got to do. So that's an interactive register. This is exactly the same. I've just used pictures, widget pictures, and again, I've just assembly added some sound. So I'm going to show you how to add the sound. Okay. So once you've added a picture, so you can either add a picture by clicking on the picture button. So this is J2E5. Okay. I've added a page, and this is the pictures button here. The wee green man, as Mary likes to call it. And it will open up into My Files. So if you've got stuff already loaded into My Files, you can load that. If you wanted to take a photograph, you've got your photograph button there. So you can take a photo straight into it. So maybe you want to get the kids coming up and take a photo of each of them. You can do that. You've also got the Google search. So, we could look for, I don't know, lunch. So you could add a picture of some lunch instead. There is a clip art option as well if you want just sort of hand-drawn images instead. Or, as I said, if you are using a symbol system, you can copy that from whichever symbol system software it is that you're using. And then if you click your cursor and then right click, you can paste it onto a J2E5 file. So that's worth remembering. So imagine I've added this. I want to add some sound to this picture. So I'm going to click on the picture and select it. And then I'm going to go up here to our multimedia button and click on that. And then we've got record sound here. So because I've clicked this photo first, it's going to add the sound to the picture. So I'm going to click record sound. Lunch. And there we go. It's got add to selection. So I can click that and that's going to add that sound to that particular picture. Now the other option, if you don't want to add it to the actual picture itself, if you click anywhere on the page and then do that same process, click on the multimedia tool, go to record sound. You've now got the option to record a sound button. So lunch. And then we go add to page. So that is sort of a floating sound button. So we can click that and just add that there. Now the beauty of the sound button is it will work when you're in the edit mode. Okay, so we're in edit mode at the moment. We've got all our buttons. If you've added to a picture, that will only work in the view mode. Okay, but personally, if I was using this as an interactive timetable, I would want it in the view mode because it removes all of those buttons around the outside. The kids can't add anything onto the page. All they can do is interact with what I have created. So here we go. I can click on lunch. Lunch. And there we go. They've got that interactive timetable. So there are lots of uses for this. I'm going to leave that. So you've got your interactive register. That would work in exactly the same way. You take photographs, click on the photo, add the sound. But we've also got a social story. So this is something that I'm working on at the moment, just from a conversation I had with the school. I suspect the school is here actually, about social stories. And I have come up with an idea that I'm hoping to create a library of social stories. So I am more than happy to be guided with that. So if anybody is using social stories and would like to have them as interactive social stories on Just2easy, please feel free to get in touch. That is my email address, nikki@j2e.com. And if Soph could just add that in the chat, should people need it. More than happy to take direction with those social stories. But this is just one that I knocked up very quickly. It's not even close to being sort of finished. I've got to send it to our graphic designer who will tidy it up. But this was the same. All I've done is I've added text, I've added some sound bites, healthy eating, social story, and I've added some images. And here we go. I've got this lovely little chap here. And I've added some oh, it's not working for some reason. I've added some sound to this text. So that works in exactly the same way. So I'm going to double click. It's because that's in front. There we go. Let's try that. There we go. So you double click the text and then you can add sound to text as well. So it doesn't have to be pictures. It could be shapes. It could be text. It could be whatever you want. Okay. And then if I go to view, that will now, it is important to eat a range of different foods. Different foods help my body to become big and strong. So there we go. So I've got some interactive text. And then in this particular social story, I've actually expanded it a little bit to become more of an interactive activity. So can you drag the foods that I like? So I like chips. I don't like tomatoes. I like biscuits. I'm going to have to put some fruit and veg on this side, aren't I? So they can interact with this social story. So that is something that I'm working on in the background. It will be available in the library soon. But as I said, just to reiterate, more than happy to work with schools on that. If you are using social stories and you want them in Just2easy, just let me know. Right. J2E5 for making jigsaws. Now the reason I put this in is because I had a student he was on the autistic spectrum. He had a very, very keen interest in jigsaws. He would do them all day, every day, and it was a great way of sort of teaching. And if I'd had this, it would have been a fantastic tool because there's only so many times you can do a physical jigsaw before you lose pieces. You can turn any picture into a jigsaw using J2E5. So I'm going to do this from scratch, okay, just to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to open up a J2E5. First of all, I'm going to rotate my page just so that it's in landscape. So our page settings are along the bottom. So I'm going to turn that into a landscape page. There we go. So you've got portrait version or landscape. You have paper backgrounds that you can use. There are a variety to choose from. Or if you right click in this box, you can choose a colour to have as a background. I normally quite like the sort of pastel yellows and blues. And there we go. And then we're just going to add in an image. So again, we're going to go to the wee green man. And you can either add something that's in your My Files already, or you can do a Google search. So I'm going to think of a topic. So let's go for the Egyptians. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to add this in here. So there's my image. And I'm going to make that bigger because obviously that's going to be a very small jigsaw. Make it much bigger. And then I'm going to click on my page, on my picture again. And when I've clicked on my picture and it's got the blue squares around it, you'll notice now I've got this convert to jigsaw option. So I can convert that. By default, it's a 4x3. You can make that easier. So you could have just a 2x2. Or you can make it much more difficult. Let's go 5x5. Okay. You've also got the option to have a hint. So if I move one of these pieces, it's almost like having the jigsaw box cover on the page already. So they can kind of match that up. So great for hand-eye coordination and making sure it's in the right place. You can add in a scatter button and a solve button. You can also convert back to photo. So if it looks terrible, you've got convert to photo, and we can scatter that. We can solve it. There we go. But the reason I like it, you can use it in edit mode that we're in now, or you can have it in view mode. So again, that reduces the amount of stuff that you've got around the outside. It means they can't really edit it, but they can still engage with this as an activity. So we can click scatter, and then they can move these pieces. Should have chosen a slightly smaller jigsaw. Here we go. But yeah, you get the idea. I'm going to try and sort of get pieces to click together. I haven't done this very well at all. Here we go. So if I click this, there we go. Can you see it molds into one? And I can click the solve button and it will solve it for me. So that's just a nice way of using your topic to create activities that are specific to your students. And you can save that into your My Files. You can also share that with students as well. Right. So that is making jigsaws in J2E5. Again, there is a YouTube video on how to do that. Right, I'm going to talk about J2E5 as sort of using it with students using it. So we've kind of looked at creating activities for the students to engage with as opposed to actually creating stuff using J2E5. But J2E5's got a lot of accessibility tools built in. Okay, so we've got things like text-to-speech, different fonts that are designed specifically for students with dyslexia. We've got speech-to-text built in. We've got word lists and changing the background colour. So this is an activity that I didn't create myself. I've actually magpied it from Charlie. It's in the resource library if you want it. And it is planet labelling. So I'm just going to open this up just so I can show you it in my Files. And here we go. So I'm going to go to edit. Now all I've done, or all Charlie's done, should I say, is added in a page background and then added some images of the planets, added in some boxes and some arrows. Okay, then what we've also done is we've added a word list at the bottom. So this really helps the students that maybe struggle a little bit. And I'm going to click here. The word list is interactive so that you can hover over those words and listen.
Earth.
And if they want to add it onto their document, they can click and that will type it in. They just need to click where they want to add that text. Now, if they've added it in the wrong place, so for example, let's listen to this one.
Uranus.
Let's add that. If they've added Uranus in the wrong place, they can double click and move that. And there we go. Okay. So these word lists are very easy to create. So I am going to show you just how easy this was to create. It did take a little bit of time, but it is quite easy. So start from scratch. So the first thing we did was rotate the page. Second thing we did was add in the space background, which I think is that one. Yes, so I'm going to add my space background. There we go. Then I added in some pictures. So let's look for, I'm going to go to my wee green man. I'm going to go up to the little globe. Let's look for Mercury. And I'm going to go for clip art. So that doesn't look very like Mercury. Is that Mercury? I feel like Mercury is a different shape. Let's add it. And it should remove that little background. There we go. It's looking very green for Mercury. Then we'll add Venus. So I'm going to add Venus in, and that black background should disappear as well. She says. Nope. Let's add this one, see if that black background disappears. No. Let's add this one and see if that background, there we go. Okay, so if it doesn't disappear, we can hover, we can drag and delete. So we're going to add that in. And then I'm going to add in Earth. Let's add this one. There we go. Now, obviously, this is not going to be to scale. Gotta love a live demo. Let's try with a different image. Let's go with this one. There we go. Okay. And then all we did was add some shapes. So let's add in a little box. Can resize that. And we can add in an arrow as well. So there are some arrow shapes and we can rotate that arrow. You can fill any of these shapes. So I can click fill and then click on that and fill. And reposition. So there we go. The kids can click anywhere and start typing. And they can change their text by double clicking, and we've got our fonts up here. Now, there are lots of fonts to choose from. In your default fonts, there should be a font called Lexend. This is actually designed to support people with dyslexia with their reading, something to do with the weighting of the words. I don't know, but there are variations of Lexend. And that can be found in the More Fonts area. So if you open up the fonts and go to More Fonts, and actually if you search for Lexend, you can see there's lots of different variations. Lexend Zeta increases the spaces between the words. So really helpful if they do find that the letters are jumping somewhat. And there's some that are sort of heftier than others. So if I click on Zeta, there we go. And you've also, if I deselect, you've got lots of fonts to choose. There's 1600 fonts. So we've got things like handwriting fonts, display fonts, thick, thin. So there you go. There's lots of fonts to choose from. And we can expand that and move it around. You can even add it into a filled border. And you can change that filled border. So maybe they find reading black on white tricky. So I can either click on that box and choose a colour. So I could say, right, I want a very pale purple, or maybe they find reading on yellow is easier. Or you can right click on that and it will bring up some preset ones. So things like beige is quite a good one. Okay, so it just helps with that reading ability. Then we can add in a word list. So the beauty of the word lists is when we create our files, we can set a word list for specific students. So I've already got one called planets, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to add a new word list. So we're going to click on the W, and then we go to new, and that gives us an option. So I'm going to say, again, I'm going to say solar system. I think I've already got one called solar system, so we'll number it 2. I'm going to have Saturn, Venus, Mars. I'm going to have, or Mars, there we go, solar system. So it doesn't have to just be singular words. This can be multiple words. It can be phrases. It could be sentence starters. It could be, I don't know, compliments or common phrases. So you can create whatever you want. As long as you hit the enter button, the enter button is what creates that as kind of a button in itself. So just to show you, if I click save, let's go, yes. There we go. So we've got solar system 2, and it drops it to the bottom of my page. I can use that spanner in the bottom right, bottom left, and I can make that larger so that it's more obvious. Or, you know, if you've got students maybe that struggle with visual impairment, you can make that much, much bigger. If you want to add more, you can edit the list. You can choose how it's sorted. And as we hover over these words, you can use that speech to text to listen to those words.
Solar system.
So there you go. You can see it's not just singular words. And as I said, the kids can click anywhere and click on that word in the word list, and it will type it onto their page. Okay. Now with the word lists, so for example, maybe you're creating this as an activity, or you're just creating a blank page with a word list on it. For the children to access the word list, you need to share it with them. So you can click, so I've got solar system here. If I hover over it, I've got that little blue eye. If I click on that, I've got my share option here. And I've already shared it with Lottie. So I want to share that with my whole class. I use my drop down menu. So we can share that with the whole class, just a teaching class, specific users, or all classes. You can add as many classes as you want. So for example, I'm going to share that with my class 1. I don't know why that hasn't added. There we go. And they can use that now. So that will be there in their word list libraries, ready for them to choose. Okay, so just to give you an idea, Lottie can open up her J2E5. Maybe she knows that she struggles with spellings, and you could say as a teacher, you've got a word list in your library. So if she opens up the W, she goes to the shared word lists, which is the little 2 people, and she's got that solar system ready to go. So she can click that, and that will open at the bottom of her page. She also has access the little 3 drawers. These are word lists that you'll find in JIT and additional word lists. So this is a library, sort of 34 preset. So you've got things like e-safety, colours, fireworks night. So there's lots to choose from. So she does always, or the user does always have access to those shared and the word list library. Okay. So even if they are creating a file from scratch, those word lists will be available. Right. Now the last few things. We've also got, there we go, talk as you type. So this is good for them getting some feedback. So you can switch that on. So if you click the cursor anywhere, you've got talk as you type. Just a word of warning, you probably wouldn't want 30 children having that switched on. If you did have that switched on, you might want to get some headphones or the volume turned down. So it's personal preference, really, whether you want that, whether you want to show them that's there. So we could say this.
This is there. Solar system.
There we go. Now, when they have written passages or pieces of text, they can double click and they've got the text to speech at the top.
This is the solar system.
They can also highlight words and click.
System.
And it will just say that word that's highlighted. And then lastly, same as with JIT, we've also got the speech to text. So you can click that and it works in exactly the same way as with JIT. So they hit the record button We live on the planet Earth. And there we go. And we can add
Earth.
text, and that will add that onto their page. And then they just click save. Planets by Miss Kimball. There we go, and hit save. Now, if you want your students to access that particular file, maybe you've created this as a template that you want them to edit, or a starter for an activity, you can share that with them. So we click on that little two people, use that drop down menu, and they can access that through the shared files area. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour of J2E5. But in terms of accessibility settings, this has got the most out of any Just2easy tool. Now, the very last thing I'm going to show you is creating your own worksheet using J2 PDF. So if you're anything like I was, I had a whole folder of printed out templates, which were PDFs that I would then take to the photocopier in the morning, photocopy them for the kids to have on their desks and ready to engage with activities. So this is like the digital version of that. You can add your PDFs into your My Files, and you can make them editable using J2 PDF. So what we can do, and I haven't opened, I don't even know where I put that PDF actually. There we go. Okay. So to add this into PDF, I'm going to open up my Files. It needs to be in my My Files to add into PDF. You can add it directly into PDF, but I'm just going to show you how to do it this way first. So I've got this PDF here, Life Skills, and I'm going to drag that into this Dropbox in My Files. And that has added that there. Now, at the moment, if I use it like this, you can't really do anything with it. It's a read-only file format. Okay, so it's rubbish. So what we need to do is close down some of these tabs. Is we open up J2 PDF. Now you can also drag this PDF straight into here as well, so it doesn't have to be in My Files. But if you have already loaded it to My Files, if you click on this button that says choose a PDF file, nope. If you click on this button that says open PDF, and there we go, there's that Life Skills. You can click, and that will add that. It'll stitch it as a background onto a J2E5 file, really. So all of those tools that we've just looked at will still work in J2 PDF. But this is now a background. So the kids can click anywhere, they can start typing, but we can edit this. So I'm going to add some ticks that they can drag. Okay, so my ticks, I'm going to find a tick image that I've already got. Let's go for, I think, this one. So I'm going to add that in. I'm going to make that a bit smaller and hope it doesn't disappear. There we go. And I'm going to add that over here so they can drag that. Then to make that draggable, I'm going to click on the image, and we've got this button here. I have to remember which one it is. This button here with the 4 arrows, bottom right, probably never noticed it. If I click that, it gives me the option to make that movable. So that means I can move that around when I'm in the view mode. I can also create copies. So this is ideal. This is infinite clones. So now if I go to the view mode, they can engage with this activity. So they can pull these ticks. So that needs to go in the freezer. That needs to go in the cupboard. So there you go. It's interactive already. So that's one element. I could add a word list. So let's go word list. I'm going to add just a new word list. I'm going to say life skills. Let's have cupboard, freezer, fridge, cold, room temperature. And there we go. You get the idea. And that's added that there, and it's added it to the bottom of my document. And then it's stitched each page to a different page. Okay, so I could go through the rest of that particular document. I might add some instructions here. So I might say, can you write the utensil needed? And there we go. We've also got spell check in J25 utensil. There we go. So when I go to view, that will add that along the side there. You can double click. You could add some sound to that. So let's go record sound. Can you, I can't remember what it says. Let's try again. Can you write the utensil needed? And add that to text. So that now is an interactive text. So if we go to view, can you write the utensil needed? They can now listen to those instructions instead. Okay, so if I want my students to access this, I'm going to save it. So I'm going to say life skills activity. It's been a very long day. Nothing like watching a toddler all day and then coming to work. I'm exhausted. Now, the only problem with J2 PDF, if you've got a multi-page PDF like this, if it's like 20 pages, it has to save each page. So just be mindful that the bigger the PDF, the longer this process takes. So what that's done, that's saved into my files. So if I want my students to have a go at this, I need to share it. So I'm going to go to share, and I'm going to share with them. So I'm going to share with my class. So now they can access that through the shared files area. So just to show you, Lottie would open up. So this is Lottie. She opens up her shared files area. She goes to list files, and there's that life skills activity, so she can listen to that. Can you write the utensil needed? She can go to edit, and she could say potato mash. There we go. And then she can save her version. So that will save a copy into her My Files as evidence. Now there is a slightly easier way of doing that. I'm aware that is a little bit, there's a lot of clicks involved with that, with the kids trying to find it. So you can either grab that URL and create a tile off your Launchpad that we looked at earlier, okay? As long as you've shared it with the class, they'll be able to access that. So make sure you share the document, create the tile, then share the tile. The other option is you can create your own resource in the library. So if we go to My Resources, you can add a resource. So let's say life skills. I'm just going to give that a random age. Subjects will go for PSHE. Can you complete the activity? And then you add that file as an attachment. So it is this one here. Make sure you don't attach this one because that's just the plain PDF. Remember, this is the life skills activity we've just created. Obviously, you would embellish those instructions a little bit more. You can give voice instructions as well. You can tag it if you want. So maybe this is life skills, or I don't know, you're doing, I don't know, citizenship or something. You want to add another tag, and then we click save. Now you can publish these. We as the Just2easy team, we do publish them, and they will end up in the community library. But if we leave it just here, if I click on that, I can share, and I can share with my class. Okay, so now instead of having to go through the shared files area, Lottie can just go to the library, and there it is. There's that activity. So she can click on that, she can see the instructions, she can click on that particular file, and she can start editing. Anything she edits and saves will save into her My Files. So that is a much easier way, I think, of sharing content. And you are welcome to publish these things. Just make sure that it's not copyrighted. So no twinkle activities, thank you. Nothing you've bought through TES. They will be rejected, unfortunately. We can't moderate those. We can't host those on our community library, but you are more than welcome to publish anything that you've created yourself. So I am at 6:30. I'm well over if it's 6:30, 4:30. So I'm aware that, you know, we've come to the end of our session. Just to make you aware, there are some resources in the library, probably not as many as I'd like, But I have tried to get my SND hat on, so I have made a resource for making compliments. So that was geared specifically towards students with ASD. Okay, and how you can make compliments. There is a word list built into that. Emotions, there is quite a lot of focus on emotions, so that emotional intelligence side of things. So there's variations of this activity, and things like being a good friend and not being a good friend. So a good link into your PSHCE and whatever other letters it's got in it now, and that is a draggable resource. So have a look at the library and share those with your students. Lastly, little bits, a very big thank you for giving up your time. We are on, I need to adjust that, it's X, it hasn't been Twitter for about 6 months now. We're on X, Just2easy_com. We're on Facebook, so Just2easy. Give us a like or a subscribe or a whatever it is, or a follow. Feel free to share any content or any content that your kids are creating. And this is our YouTube handle, Just2easy TV. So please give us a subscribe. All of our training goes onto there. So have a look. So I'm going to check if there's any questions. I'm aware people have struggled with the chat function. So I'm going to pop my email in the chat. So if anybody does have any questions and they can't ask them in the chat, that's my email. So just drop me a line. But has anybody got any questions? Just pop them in the chat. Switches, Lynn, I thought you might ask me about that. Not at the moment, and I'm aware it's a bit of a struggle because you have to get the supporting technical things. But no, but what you can do is you can add animations into J2E5. So they would have to come up to the board. I know that's a bit of a pain, but if they click them, the pictures can move or disappear or float off. So that might be a nice cause and effect activity for your students. Yeah, I used to use Crick USB switch and Priory Woods and Ian Bean stuff as well. But yeah, I'll have a think about that and I'll see if I can pop some resources in the library for you. Any other questions? Can you link the picture to a different page? Yes, you can. Lynn, you've come up with some very, very good questions today for me. Right, I'll show you this quickly. Feel free to head off, people, if you have places to go, but you can, I'm trying to think. Let me find multi-page. Okay, so let's have a look. No, let me get my social story. Okay, so I'm going to add an arrow here just to give you an idea. And then I'm just going to type next page and add that on top. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to highlight. I need to lock this in place. Here we go. I'm going to stop playing ball. I'm going to highlight that image that I want to link to a different page. Okay, so I'm going to click on that image and then you've got this button that says link. Okay, so this link button allows you to link to a web address. So maybe you've got a YouTube video that you want them to watch. You could add the YouTube logo and then paste that address in there. So you can link to a web address. You can also, if I click browse, you can link to a different activity. Okay, so that is an option. And if I use this drop down menu here, you've got multiple pages. Now just be aware you have to create the pages first. So you have to make all the pages and then do this kind of next page step. But I'm going to link that to page 2 and then click OK. And that link will only work when I'm in the view mode. But if I go to view, and now if I click on that button, it's going to automatically swap to the next page. So that is how you would do that. But as I said, you can link to different activities. So I've locked this. So let me unlock. So maybe I want to add a linked activity here. So I can go to link, I can go to browse, and I could link to that life skills activity. Now, if you are linking to another activity, I would suggest you click that open in a new window box, because it will leave that original activity open in a tab and then open a new tab, as opposed to just going to a new tab. If I click OK, so now if I go to view, if I click on this child, it's going to open up that activity. So that's a nice way of doing like a kind of activity wrapper. So maybe you've got, I don't know, a visual timetable, and they've got English first and then history. You could link those activities. So if they've got an English activity, they could just click on that English symbol and it takes them to their English activity, and they can do that, save it, come back, and then their history activity. There's lots of uses for that. Okay, great question. Can you link the widget symbol to a different page? Now, widget symbols, been a while since I used widget symbols, I must admit. I would assume that you can export the widget symbols or copy and paste them, as long as you've, it was always the case, I used to use Board Maker, and it was always the case as long as you bought the software, that you can then use it in other activities, as long as you didn't publish them. So don't publish anything to the library. I think you will be able to copy and paste them. So just to give you an example, let me look for widget symbol. So for example, this one, I would, from widget, I would copy that image, and then in my J2E5, I can click anywhere, so my cursor comes up, and then right click and paste. That's going to paste your widget symbol into J2E5. So it's a great way of tying in symbols that you're already using, keeping that continuity. And then you could add text underneath it if you wanted to, if they're working at that level. You could click on that symbol, add sound to it to make it an interactive symbol. Again, you could link that to a different page. So yeah, there's lots of uses for that. As long as you can copy it in widget, which I assume you would be able to, but I haven't seen the Crick software for probably a good 10 years now, so I couldn't tell you. But there you go. Okay. Any other questions? No. Lynn, you've really tested me today. Right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now. There you go, Lynn. See, I've changed your world. Lynn, I'm more than happy to meet up on a one-to-one if you want to sort of have, you know, a brainstorming activities idea session. So just drop me an email. You've got my email address, so I'd be more than happy to do that. Any excuse to work with a special needs school. Again, I miss it desperately. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining us. This session will be uploaded to YouTube by the end of this evening. So have a lovely Wednesday evening, and we hope to see you for another webinar soon. Okay, thanks. Good night.